Hi, my name is Anneka Svenska and I am a leading authority on canine behaviour and care. I host one of YouTube's most popular animal and dog TV channels, Animal Watch, with over 500,000 subscribers.
Today I'd like to introduce you to Zora. Zora is my Romanian rescue, who I brought back from Romania in about 2011, along with about another 300 dogs, which I rehomed all over the UK.
Zora is genetically Rottweiler, German Shepherd, mixed with a few unknown mixes from the streets of Romania. Her story was that she was picked up as a 6-week-old puppy by a homeless man and traded to a dog hoarder in exchange for beer. A local rescuer managed to intervene and save her by grabbing her from the man and running away, to the dismay of the hoarder, who pointed a rifle at her.
Zora has never been able to keep any rich food down, especially raw meat. Since she came over at 6 months old, the vet checked her out and found absolutely nothing wrong with her. Yet she would just throw up everything that I gave her.
My experience with street dogs is that they have evolved to eat rubbish off the streets, such as stale bread left in piles for them at the side of the road. This possibly has resulted in a different gut bacteria to your typical pampered bred pet. She simply cannot tolerate raw meat, and it is thrown up within minutes of being consumed.
So ProDog Raw and myself decided to team up to see if it's possible to get a dog like Zora onto a healthy raw meat diet, even though their gut initially rejects the meat. Well, Zora and I were certainly up for the challenge because she does enjoy the taste, even though not being able to keep it down.
So in order to get going, I sat down to have a Zoom call with top veterinarian Dr. Nick Thompson.
She looks like your classic brown moggy dog, and I've had her since she was 6 months old, and when she came to me I had a huge amount of problems with her diet because everything I gave her she threw up. It was like saliva coming up, loads and loads of mucus and saliva. Everything I fed her she just vomited. There was a lot of diarrhea. This is very, very common with the rescues from other countries because when they are in the wild, they're eating trash and leftover bread. So what they do in Romania is the bakeries, when they're finished for the day and all the bread, they've got leftover stuff, they literally tip the truck up and the bread slides out and you have a giant pile of rock hard bread, and all the strays in the area eat from this pile of disgusting bread. And if they're lucky, they'll get some dried kibble from some rescuers that will go around and sprinkle it around.
So Nick and I had a thorough conversation, and he decided that we should tackle Zora's issues in 3 stages. Firstly, introduce a prebiotic over a few days to coat the lining of her stomach, followed by a probiotic to help her gut bacteria, and finally a soothing bone broth to get her used to meat inside her stomach.
I would start with a slippery elm, yeah? And on the first day, you would just put a tiny smidge on the first meal in the morning. And if she's good with that, you'd maybe put just a more generous one in the evening. Then the next day, if she's still good, then you try half a teaspoon and half a teaspoon. And then on the third day, if she's good, you'll go 1 teaspoon and 1 teaspoon. And you're there. She's on it. She's on a prebiotic. And that's going to help to keep the inflammation reduced while we try other little bits and pieces. It'll buy us a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, so if we can get her onto the slippery elm without any problem, we would then say, okay, BioCult. Her final dose is going to be 1 capsule in each meal. But what we would do is we'd do the same thing. So on the first day, we'd open the capsule and just put a tiny bit on 1 meal. If she's good in the morning, we would then say maybe half a capsule that afternoon. If she's good with that, we'd maybe try 1 capsule in the morning the next day and then 1 capsule in the evening. It's just a weaning process. Yeah, it's like trying to get your kids to eat spinach. And then you bring in the next one. So yeah, so like a sawtooth introduction. And then if she'll allow us to get some BioCult into her gut, that's a probiotic. So it's putting beneficial bugs, which is going to help her with the digestion process. 3, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to recondition, re-educate her gut to be more like a carnivore than an omnivore, which it is at the moment. That means that you've got about 10 days, 5 days for slippery elm, 5 days for the biocult. You've got about 10 days to make the bone broth, the healing gut bone broth. And again, with that, on the first day, you try half a teaspoon in the first meal. If she's good with that, try maybe a teaspoon that afternoon. If she's good with that, you try maybe 2 or 3 teaspoons the next day, and then 2 or 3 teaspoons. And if she vomits with any of these introductions, we just stop and we have a chat.
All right, brilliant, lovely. Well, lovely to talk to you, and fingers crossed, let's see if we can sort Zora out.
So as discussed, we decided to start Zora on the transfer from super bland kibble to wet tinned food. And on day 1, I chose a better than average tinned food without nasty ingredients, so her transition was easy. She loved the soft food, and I kept an eye on her for sickness. There was none. On day 2, we decided to add the slippery elm into her food. Slippery elm is used for dogs to help soothe and calm, and this was to help prepare her body for what was to come. They come in capsules, and you simply sprinkle it on the food. Day 4, we introduced the probiotic. We decided to use BioCult. Probiotics contain healthy gut bacteria, and it was the thought that Zora was perhaps lacking in the bacteria needed to process meat, as she had eaten bread and other street foods while in Romania. I sprinkled it on, and she was fine with it. Day 6, we decided to add the bone broth in order to gently introduce her to meat and bone. We used ProDog Raw bone broth, and she was given just a small teaspoon to start, which was increased as the days went on. She did not throw it up and was really enjoying the new flavours.
So after 1 week of increasing the broth, I had a catch up with Nick the vet.
So my thought would be, I would guess that her microbiome, her bugs in her gut, are a lot happier because of the slippery elm biocult and because of the bone broth. And my thought would be, rather than going as the next stage as going raw, it would be to bring in cooked meat. Yeah, because hens, essentially, they are ultra processed food, but they're essentially it's cooked protein. So she's kind of hinting there that she's not too bad with cooked protein. And then once we're on cooked protein, then we can gradually cook less and less and less if her gut bugs are happy. Pleasantly surprised with what you're saying, because she's basically playing by the rules. Many dogs that I see all the complicated cases, don't read the textbooks, but so far she is doing very, very well indeed. I'm really pleased. So let's continue with the slippery elm, continue with the BioCult probiotic, continue with the pork broth, increasing those. She's over onto the tins, and I'm going away. I'm taking the family on holiday for half term. So I would suggest let's not make any major changes while I'm away. But as soon as I get back, I'm back on the 30th of October, and at that stage, we can bring in the protein depending on the details that we get from Heidi and from you. Then we can make a choice, and we will go infinitesimally small. We'll start with just a gram of meat on the first day. Yeah, and then on the second day, we'll maybe cut half a teaspoon, and then we'll go a teaspoon, etc. So that it's if we're going to get problems, we have small problems, because it's easier to row back from a gram's worth of inflammation than from a kilo's worth of inflammation.
Yeah.
Nick the vet went away, and during his absence, the meat broth was working so well that I decided to start to add a little ProDog Raw every day, gradually. Zora really enjoyed it and would eat it straight up. I waited to see if there was any rejection, and there was none. So I carried on until she was eating 100% ProDog Raw and nothing else. I did try a raw chicken leg, and Zora is unable to keep this down. But as far as minced raw meat, it has been a total and utter success story. Her coat is shiny, and she is so happy and wags her tail before feed time.
Well, this goes to show that it is possible to transition a dog over to a healthy raw meat diet, even though the gut initially might reject it. I tried it and it worked for me and Zora. You never know, have a go, it might work for you too.
To find out more about ProDog Raw, please visit www.prodograw.com.